Communication can see everything. Communication is an essential part of our daily lives. Today, we will learn the two models of communication. First is the Barnlund's transactional model of communication, and the second one is the Dance's Helical model of communication. This is documentation.
This is a situation aligned with the Barnlund's transactional model of communication.
Barnlund's transactional communication explores interpersonal. There is an immediate feedback communication. In this model, both are senders and receivers. Also, there is an instant verbal and nonverbal feedback. Noise that comes from environment becomes the barrier.
Barnlund's transactional model is a multi-layered feedback system. This is a continuous process where the sender and receiver interchanges their places and both are equally important. The message passing takes place with a constant feedback being provided from both parties. A feedback for one is the message for the other. Here are the components of Barnlund's model. First is cues. Cues refers to the sign for doing something. As per Barnlund's, there are public cues, private cues, and behavioral cues in the model diagram shown. Next is spiral lines. It gives graphic representation in the assumptions like public cues and private cues. So for public cues, we have here the CPU. These are physical, environmental or artificial, and natural or man-made. Next, we have the private cues or the CPR, are also known as private object of orientation, which includes senses of a person. Both these cues can be verbal and non-verbal.
Another set of cues are behavioral cues. Behavioral cues can be verbal, also known as CBE-HB, as well as non-verbal or the CBE-HNB. The arrows and their directions show that the message is intentionally sent and actively taken when the receivers play a key role of giving his feedback. Arrows, also known the process of production of technical encoding, interpretation, and decoding. We all know that the jog lines shows the availability of cues can be unlimited, and it is depends as 4B. The valence signs we have here, the positives, neutral or zero, and negative are also attached to these types of cues, which illustrated the amount, degree, strength, and attractiveness of the cues in the message. The speech act refers to particular stance of communication in the model. Filters are the realities of the people engaged in the communication. Here are the senders and receivers. Personal filters might differ according to cultures, traditions, content of the message, and many more that we can see in our daily living lives. So, noise is the problems, or it is the barriers that arise in communication flow and disturbs the message flow.
According to Dance's Helical model of communication, with every cycle of communication, we expand our circle. Dance's Helical communication model views communication as a particular process that gets more and more complex as communication progresses. Therefore, each communication encounter is different from the previous one because communication never repeats itself.
Interpersonal communication is irreversible.
Like the spiral shown here, communication never looks back on itself. Once it begins, it expands infinitely as the communication partners contribute their thoughts and experiences to exchange. According to this communication model, in the communication process, the feedback we get from the other party influences our next statement, and we become more knowledgeable with every news cycle.
Dance himself explained his model with the example of a person learning throughout their life. Namely, a person starts to communicate with their surroundings very early on using rudimentary methods of communication. For instance, as babies, we cry to get our mother's attention. Later on, we learn to speak in words and then in full of sentences. During the whole process, we build on what we know to improve our communication.
Pasok na! Okay, take care!
Every communication act is, therefore, a chance for us to learn how to communicate more effectively.
Yes, speaking. This is Solana Hotel. How can I help you?
In a way, our whole life is one communicational journey towards the top of Dance's helix.
So today, we learned the significance of two communication models.
We are hoping that you learn, apply, and transfer. So this is documentation.